Hello and welcome. My name is Bashir Fadl, and on behalf of LearnITCoursesOnline.com, as well as LearnJobsOnline.com, I'd like to thank you. We do know that you have a variety of choices of IT training, and you've chosen us, so we really appreciate that and hope that you enjoy it. Thank you. In this segment, we're going to cover SOQL, SOQL, which is short for Salesforce Object Query Language. SOQL supports some features in SQL, and SOQL is a primary means of fetching data in force.com. Where before we start writing our fancy SOQL queries, the first question is, where do we write them? So Salesforce provides a variety of areas where we can execute our queries. The most common one is the developer console. Usually it's under Setup. You'll find the developer console. And so we open the developer console and we'll find a tab, as in the lower image, that shows Open Query. And we go to the query editor, type in our query, and all the way below that there's an execute button, and that is how we run and execute our query. So now let's look at some SOQL features. SOQL is case sensitive. SOQL is very easy to understand when compared to SQL. SOQL helps to optimize code. SOQL reduces our workload and time. Data from objects can be extracted to Excel using SOQL. And SOQL queries will be required in some of our Apex programming. And that's why a wide knowledge in SOQL is very helpful, especially for the developer. So what's the purpose of SOQL? Salesforce Object Query Language in Apex can also be used in Visual Force controllers and the getter methods. It can be used in the Schema Explorer of the force.com IDE. When writing a query, we don't use the field label name, we use the API name. So if on the page I enter the name of the student under field student name, the API name might be student __ C. So where do I find the API name? We can go to Setup, and then Build, and then Create, and then Objects. Select Objects. From the list of custom objects, we open any custom object, and in the Custom Object Definition Details section, we can observe the API name as shown. In this case, the label was student, but the API name is student __ C. Or we can also go to the Object Manager, click on the object, look at field and relationships, and we'll see the field name, and next to that is the API name. So now we'd like to move into the syntax of SOQL and explaining how it works. Salesforce Object Query Language, SOQL, uses the select keyword to fetch data from objects and fields. In SQL, Structured Query Language, the keyword select is used to fetch data. And the SOQL syntax is select fields from object where condition, and then the order if you would like to place an order, and then limit for view or for reference offset update view stat. So let's break that into a little more detail. Fields. When we mention fields, it uses API names of an object. Object. Object refers, when we mention the object, it denotes the custom and standard object name. Next is condition, which is used to filter records. We use conditions in SOQL. Next is ordering. This is used for ordering the results. Next is limit. It limits the number of records when we are fetching the data. For view. This is used to fetch records from last day fetched records. For reference, it is used to update the last reference date that is used. Update view stat. This updates the article's view statistics for fetched records. When writing SOQL statements, we use the API names for fields, and labels of the fields should not be used. And then for standard object, field names refer as API name, and from custom objects, API num column refers to the API name. So now we're going to write a basic SOQL statement. In this example, we're taking the standard object called account to the standard object, where we store information about our customers and partners. So our statement will be select ID, comma, name from account. And from this example, we're fetching the ID and name from the standard object called account. We can fetch both custom fields and standard fields in a standard object. So in this example, we're going to type select name, comma, ID, comma, active _ C from account. So this allows us to fetch both standard and custom fields from the account object. Of course, custom fields have the extension _ C. Now we move to the where clause. The where clause is also called a conditional expression. Where clause is used to filter the retrieved data. Whenever we want to filter data from a set of objects, we use the where clause in SOQL. This where clause filters the data based on given condition or criteria. Where clause is followed by some comparison operator and logical operators, such as in operator, not in operator, includes operator, excludes operator. So let's look at the example that we have. We're selecting, so we type select first name, comma, last name from contact where first name is not equal to null. Of course, null means blank, so there's no name there. Not null means we don't want first names being blank. We're looking for first names that are populated. And so from this statement, we're fetching data from standard object called contact. We're using the conditional expression where to filter retrieve data from the contact object preceding where. We had used the not equal to operator to filter the data first name, which is not null or not blank. So now let's examine another example with the where clause in SOQL. So we type select first name, comma, last name from contact where last name is equal to a dash. From the SOQL statement, we're fetching data from the contact whose first name is a dash. In SOQL statement, text words are mentioned with the single quotes, a quote at the beginning and a quote at the end. So now we want to clarify a little bit more what the comparison operators in SOQL are. Comparison operators in SOQL are used to compare a value with another value to return a true or a false. Different types of comparison operators in SOQL are equals, not equals, less than or greater to, greater than or equal to, and like. Now we're going to examine the equals operator in SOQL. So let us see an example using equals operator to implement SOQL statements. Using equal operator in SOQL can retrieve the data based on the criteria and condition equals. So in this example, we're selecting. So we're going to type select first name, comma, last name from contact where first name is equal to Adarsh. And so in this statement, the equals condition or operator checks whether the values of the two operands are equal. If the value is equal, the condition becomes true. If not, the condition fails. Now let's look at the comparison operators in SOQL. The like operator is used to retrieve the data from the match substring provided. Like operator is also called as pattern matching filtering technique. So we have to use the percent at the beginning or the end, or both at the beginning and the end, to show what kind of filtering we're doing. At this time, we're going to examine the order by clause in SOQL. Order by clause is used to retrieve the data in ascending or descending order by the condition given in SOQL statement. In Salesforce, order by clause are two types. They're ascending and descending. ASC, short for ascending, DESC, short for descending. And so in our statement that we're going to type, select name, comma, amount from opportunity, order by name, ascending. So here we've used the order by clause called ascending. And from this example, we're grabbing the name, amount values will be retrieved from the opportunity, and then the records will be arranged in ascending order. So the names are going to be alphabetical, basically, from A to Z. Now let's examine parent-to-child relationship. When a relationship is from parent to child, then SOQL statements must have a subquery in its statement. For standard objects, SOQL relationship name is equal to plural of the child object name. So in this example, we would type select name, comma, and then between brackets or braces, select last name from contacts, close that bracket, from account. Now let's examine a SOQL query on a child-to-parent relationship. When a SOQL relationship is from child to parent, then the SOQL statement will not have a subquery. SOQL relationships name is equal to the name of the parent object. So we'll do a select contact.firstname, comma, contact.account.name from contact. And so here we see an example of text searches that use SOQL, and those are frequently used. As we've seen, the where clause, order by, limit, and the explanation and an example for each one of those. And here we have additional examples. With this, we come to the end of this session, and we'd like to thank you for joining us. And also, don't hesitate to visit our website at learnitcoursesonline.com to leave your feedback and reviews. And also look at our events. We have a lot of free sessions, and we'd be more than happy to have you join at any given time, and also sign up with us for our newsletter. Thank you and have a wonderful time.